So as I was working on the event management portal, and as you can see, like there are, for me, basically as part of my proposal, the event management had basically three pillars which were required to be implemented from scratch. The first one was the concept of event projects and event tasks, and this was a demo which I had previously shared with the team, where you can now categorize different tasks that need to accomplish an event under the banner of event projects. You can add multiple tasks for it. You can change their completion status, their deadlines, and you can even work on assigning volunteers to the same. I think so. I'm just facing a login error, so I'll just log out and log in meanwhile. But yes, sir.
Yes, so on the screen, how do you know which event that you're in? Is that the test description? That's the name of the event?
Yes, sir. Because like right
Okay.
now, the UI is not completely stable. That's why we are facing this problem. Otherwise, when the UI it would be, you would be able to see all of that.
All right. So when are you going to be implementing the various design elements from Rishav? Because that's
So
going to be
once the
important.
functionality is going to be completely stable, then it will be just as easy as changing some CSS. So I'm just waiting for Rishabh to complete it because I do not want to be redoing the same work that's been done.
Yes. Okay, that makes
So,
sense. Okay, go ahead.
so yes, sir. So as we know, this was nothing new here. This was all of this. But this week, these 2 weeks, I've been working on the next two pillars for the demonstration, which have been, we have now events and the way to get their volunteers and events. But the next thing is we need to register attendees for the events. Now I primarily view this to be a task as from the that should be accomplishable from the mobile side, because the details of the event should be able to be shown on the mobile app and the user should be able to add to them. But we also want to have an ability for an admin or the org admin to be able to add attendees to an event, because in cases where we need bulk registration or we need some people, if we need to help people with adding events, so we can add we need to be able to provide the admin with the functionality to add attendees to the event. So for doing that, there's just a simple drop down. All of the members of the current org would be accessible in this list, and you can search for their name. Like if I add myself, I can add it in, and I'll get a nice tag here through which I can see that I have been added. And same way, I can choose another person and add. And from the same screen, I can just search and even remove the registered attendees if in case I need to, as an admin, need to be able to remove. And you can see as I'm adding or removing the attendees here, the count for the attendees in the background is also changing live without even the screen reloading or any API calls being made. So we are not overdoing on the back end, or we are not putting any additional stress on the back end. So that is one thing
What,
that's very important.
Eshaan, before you move on, so you got to that screen by clicking on the check-in attendees, correct?
No, sir, show attendees. Basically, since we are dealing with the attendees right now, so it's the show attendees button where we are allowing people to register for it, or basically adding register people to register for the event manually.
Okay. So, all right. So an attendee would, so technically, this is more on the definitions more than actual functionality. An
Yes,
attendee is
sir.
usually the person who's actually attended, and the person who hasn't attended is not really an attendee. They're more like somebody who's registered, like a registrant.
Okay,
So
sir.
it would be better to say add like show registered people or show registrants, added registrant, and then when you do the check-in for the attendee of the registrant, that's when they actually become an attendee. The,
Okay, so I can do one thing, that I'll just change the UI to, instead of calling these event attendees, I can change the UI to call them event registrants.
y-
Uh,
y-
but the backend has already been implemented with them calling attendees, so that might lead to a bit of inconsistency. So, do you want to? Should I like migrate both of them to using the term registrants, or like what you like
so
me to do?
okay, so what happens when somebody is checked in? What is there a checked in field or
Yes,
whatever?
sir.
That's okay.
Yes, sir. Actually, it's in the backend they are treated as completely two. That is, I'd wanted the backend has been designed in such a manner that all of these fields have been decoupled. So we are not relying on the changes of one field in the other. So like when a user is registered it's stored in a completely different table, and when
Okay.
a user is checked in, that information is again stored in a different table, so that all of the information is able to handle is handled independently, and we are not like repeating information, and we do not have any stale data lying there. So like
Okay.
that, when the backend changes were made, all relevant due attention was paid to the same.
Yeah, attendees is going to create confusion at some point. Yeah, we may need to change it with it back and talk to your mentors about it. But it just seems to me that that could cause long-term problems, and maybe something that we want to change earlier rather than later.
Sure, sir. Like once
Oh,
this functionality is stable and merged, then I can make a migrating PR in which I'll ensure that all of the existing functionality does not break, and the term attendees is changed to registrants. And only after check-in, we are like using the term attendees for the same.
all right. So when I look at some of the management software that I've seen online, when you do the check-ins and you click on check-in attendees, you'll see like the icon for the person, and then you see the name. And there's like
Uh,
rather than having drop downs, it's more like a long list.
uh,
Um,
uh, I'll just demo it, sir. For
sure,
like
go ahead.
since the design principle is two separate things. Like
Right. Hmm.
as I said, we right now want most of the people to be registering through the app. The
Correct.
show attendees button, or like the ability for the admin to register a user, is something of a convenience case. We do not
Correct.
want all of our users registering to the admin portal. So that's why it has been purposely designed in a way so that you can quickly search and just add the people that you want to add without having exposing all of the information. On the other hand, check-in is something that would be primarily done through the admin portal. So in that case, the board for the same is completely different. You get the users' names, and you get like you can even search for the users. Like this is a simple regex check that is happening here against the name. So you can check in for the user. You can allot them a room. These are not compulsory fields, but if you want, so I can, let's say I want to allot him the room ABC and the seat as 123, and then I can click the check-in button. So when the same is done, you can see the status of the user to be checked in, and you can now download the tag for the user. Like I just click, I might have to share my entire screen, but I'll just show that on clicking the download tag button in the new tab, I was able to open this PDF in which the information about the user might be populated. This is something that is work in project, is a work in progress, because working with PDFs through SVGs is something, it messes the alignment. So, but this should be stable within a couple of days. So the check-in functionality, this is the point of the check-in functionality, where you get a long list where you are able to search for the users, and then you are able to check their status. That once you can check in the user, provide some information about the room that has been allotted to him, and download the tag. And if you want a icon for the user, basically where the let's say the first name and the last name, or basically a small tag for the user is displayed, the same can be added in this.
Okay. Is the allotted room and allotted seat already in the database, or is that something that you're just thinking about doing?
It has been implemented, so it's already being stored. These are nullable values, so you don't need to definitely provide them, but if you provide them, the information about that is stored in the backend and can be used in the kind of generation of reports and feedbacks.
Okay. Um, just for now, let's not have the allotted room and the allotted seat. Let's make it really simple. And
Okay, sir.
the reason for that is because typically an event is usually just in one room. And even if it's like a conference, there would be a separate um, breakout room or a sessions area or a sub conference meeting. All of those would be in their own allocated room, and so therefore you wouldn't necessarily need to have people checking in to an event in a separate room. Um, that doesn't that doesn't is not necessary at this time. So let's just keep it really simple. They're there. The event is assigned to a room, and they're checked in. And let's not bother. Let's not. We don't need to change the database at the moment. Just don't present this information. Just very simple
Sure,
check-in.
sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then the downloading of the tag Uh, what I think some of these other apps do is when you click on the tag thing, it's not that it's downloaded, that it goes straight to a printer. And so rather than don't work
Uh,
on the download just now, just assume that the device is going to be hooked up to a printer, and we will figure, not right now, we'll figure out exactly what sort of form for that printer would be recommended. So typically it would be either like a regular um, label printer, or it could be like a laser printer with like Avery type tags on it, so that you'd be printing 1 or 10 or 12 at a time, depending. That may be the option. So let's keep it simple rather than trying to do all the SVG, etc., etc. More than likely, it would all we'd really need is just the person's name, and that's it. We may or may not want to have the icon for the organization printed on it as well. So think of ways in which that could be done,
sure, sir.
and don't spend as much time on creating an SVG. It's going to be a plain, simple print statement of some sort. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sure.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments on this particular section? Nope. All right. Please go ahead, Eshaan.
So that's all from my side, sir, because as I said, the three pillars should be event projects, event attendees, and checking in the attendees. So by this, at least all of the event, I'll just work on the changes that have been recommended by you, and after the same, all of the event management basically would be live for the admin portal as well as in the backend. So now if someone is working on the app, they can start contributing to it and using the resolvers that have been already implemented in the backend to kind of start showing and creating screens for the same, as well as they can now hook into the admin UI and actually manage the event from the admin UI, so that the developer experience too improves while working on the mobile app, and they don't have to manually edit MongoDB and change all the relationships.
Okay. Just before we go on with Jamari, I see here where we have tasks, and we say whether the task is an easy task or a difficult task. I would.
This is just a description that just I added.
Oh,
so
I
this
see.
is like nothing.
Oh, I see. So
This is not a rating, so you can just change it. Like
okay.
that was me being creative.
All right, all right. I just wanted to make sure. The reason why I'm asking is because I want to keep things as simple as possible for
Yes,
people.
sir.
All right, good. All right, Jamari, please go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask whether the the event functionality was actually like you're going to have like rooms implemented where like live video chats on this application.
No, the whole idea behind an event is just so that we can manage. This is from more the perspective of an event management person. So it wouldn't necessarily, if there's going to be like video or whatever, that would be through some other separate means. This is just to make sure that people are physically present at the particular event. But what you're saying, like having a virtual event, we may need to think about ways in
No,
which we
I'm
could handle that.
I'm not suggesting that you have actual event on the application. The reason I asked is because I didn't see anywhere where you have a link to like meeting, like a Google Meet link or a Zoom link or anything like that.
Right.
So I was
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah, we could potentially do something like that. That's actually a good point.
Also, that could be just included in the description of the event. Like when
Right.
we have created an event, you can just include the same, because the whole point of this is we do not want to distinguish between the events, and moreover, this is not a platform that is being used to communicate the details of the event to the users. This is strictly for the managerial purposes. So having a link for the event here, and because if we start looking at events in such nitty-gritty, every event has some specific requirements. If I'm hosting a session, so one information that I might be interested in giving out is the speakers of the sessions and who are they, and the links to their profile. If I'm having a video conferencing, I might be interested in giving out the link to the meet of the meet link basically. So every event would have distinct requirements. So we should not be using this portal as a means of communication with the audience, but rather strictly for the management purposes, to keep track of who is coming, who is not, and managing the tasks related to the event. And any such information which is relevant, we can always add it in the event description.
Right, and as long as the links are live, so that people can click on the link in the mobile app and it goes automatically to the Zoom or whatever, I think we should be okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Eshaan. This is good. Glad to see the
Thank you, sir.
progress. Glad to see the progress. I'm looking forward to seeing the new skin when the stability is created, but this is encouraging.